First off, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to my many American listeners. Hopefully you're with friends and family and you found something in life, at least one thing, maybe hopefully more, that you're grateful for. I know everyone's dealing with a lot of trials and tribulations, or almost everyone is. So even rich people have a lot of problems too. It's something that the average working person doesn't understand. Rich people have a whole different set of problems. Everyone's got problems. The key to being successful in life, I think, is learning how to deal with them and overcome them. So let's just do an update here because President Trump is still working. So President Trump is undermining. This is what happens when you have a large government, where oftentimes, and there's so many examples of this throughout the U.S. modern American history, countless times, where one segment of the large federal government counteracts or undermines another segment of the federal government. So last week, Congress, when they're not busy trying to, or the House of Representatives is not busy trying to impeach Trump, I believe it was Marco Rubio who was pushing this, but I'm sure in the House there were others. So Congress passed this the Hong Kong human rights bills. So today, according to the Associated Press, China is pissed because President Trump signed today 2 bills aimed at supporting human rights in Hong Kong. So that, in my opinion, very, very bad. It's not going to help trade negotiations. In fact, it's going to hurt trade negotiations even further. And yet, 24 hours ago, you had President Trump again tweeting, pumping the stock market. New stock market record today, again in all caps. Congratulations, U.S. And I'm sure he will be manipulating, trying to, with tweets, Larry Kudlow, all the other people he will march out, trying to manipulate the stock market again. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Marco Rubio either. But if Marco Rubio is going to try to force Chinese companies to adhere to U.S. accounting laws, then maybe I'll agree with Marco Rubio on that one issue. So this U.S. trying to force China, this bill that Trump just, 2 bills that Trump just signed today, not going to help trade negotiations at all. In fact, they're going to hurt things. China, at this point, China's not getting anything they want. China wants the Huawei CFO, the charges dropped. They want the U.S. trying to stop extraditing the Huawei CFO from Canada to the U.S. So far, the Huawei CFO, her lawyers, and the Chinese government have been able to block that. They want the Huawei removed from the entity list, which means that it is a felony. If you look this up, the laws, I believe Huawei was added in May of this year, so much earlier this year. They want Huawei removed from the entity list because that makes it a felony for American corporations to do business with Huawei. So China, and also China wants not only tariffs rolled back, they want tariffs eliminated before they sign anything. Not that the Chinese would adhere to anything that was signed, really, but before they would even consider signing anything that would be enforceable. So you have, on top of this, you have what Congress just did last week, and then Trump just signed these bills today. So Trump's working on Thanksgiving. And now Trump's going to still try to spin this. He's going to, I'm sure, once the stock market opens, maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow's a light day. So probably he'll wait till next week. Do I think Trump will get a phase 1 this year after the Hong Kong bill? Most likely not. Most likely not. This probably is most likely the nail in the coffin. This is the nail in the coffin because China views it as Americans should not interfere. Foreign governments, especially the U.S., should not interfere in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is supposed to be separate from China still. It's not supposed to be fully taken over by China, if you're familiar, until 2047, I believe. So there's supposed to be a 50-year transition from, 1997 to 2047, and that's not happening. The integration is already almost complete. There will be no phase 1. Anyway, phase 1 was supposed to happen before it was relabeled phase 1. Meanwhile, all these mainstream Wall Street people are all still hoping that phase 1 gets announced so they have an excuse to say the stock market's going higher. When in reality, the real reason the stock market's going to go higher is because of share buybacks continuing and also central bank balance sheet expansion. We did not see an update yet. I'm still hitting the refresh button. I've been doing so on the St. Louis Fed website on total assets for an hour now. Not seen an update yet on that. So probably won't see one today because it's a holiday. So even though a lot of these Bernie bros and women for Bernie are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, Cadillac health insurance, cushy retirement benefits, to say how much, to redistribute wealth to rich people and claim that they're going to help the poor. But in reality, they're doing the opposite with their wealth effect. And a lot of these people who are PhD economists at the Fed are hardcore socialists, despite the fact that they're getting paid ridiculous amounts of money, and they're not being held accountable for their failures at their job. They're getting discounted quality food at their cafeteria. If you've read Danielle DiMartino Booth's Fed Up, she talks about all the cushy perks that Federal Reserve Bank employees get. Fred Hickey was ranting about this. My friend Fred Hickey on Twitter was ranting about this week. He read through documents about how many employees the Fed has and how much they're paid, and just ridiculous. So much waste, fraud, corruption, and abuse. Excesses at the Fed. So, despite the Fed being paid a lot of money, probably, I doubt they're working on a holiday today, so I doubt we see a balance sheet update today, officially. I will check tomorrow then. Doubt we see one. Normally they come around 5 p.m. on Thursdays. So if you want to check this for yourself, the official Fed balance sheet, which I don't think is going to be anywhere near accurate to the reality of the situation, because, I mean, look at the currency swaps and all the other stuff that came out with the Ron Paul partial one-time audit, the government accountability GAO audit in 2011, and then also the Bloomberg Freedom of Information Act request, 25,000 plus documents that was revealed that, so the one-time partial audit was like 16 trillion that was revealed, and then the Bloomberg FOIA, or Freedom of Information Act request, that let loose 25,000 documents. People found that there was evidence of currency swaps and other interest-free loans to foreign banks, foreign governments, foreign central banks, foreign corporations, foreign private banks. It was actually closer to like 29 trillion. I think it was over 26 trillion. So there was over 10 trillion more in 2008. So no, I don't think this Trump working today, signing these Hong Kong bills, while that may be good for the people in Hong Kong who are protesting, this is not good for a trade deal. That might be the last nail in the coffin. And meanwhile, you're going to see talking heads, anyone who can spin this or lie or obfuscate the reality, the facts about this, can spin this, is going to go on CNBC and Bloomberg and still be optimistic Monday through Friday about a trade deal getting done. Taper Tantrum says, well, if China doesn't buy our hogs and soybeans, Hong Kong will declare independence. No, go and watch the 60 Minutes Australia interview that the defected Chinese spy, and I feel really bad for that guy, because you know what, if he doesn't get asylum from Australia or the US, that guy's not going to be, I hate to say this, but I don't think the odds of him being alive much longer are very high. But China is already, like, they have tons of dummy corporations in Hong Kong as like fake investment vehicles, and it's all controlled by the Chinese military and the Chinese government, Chinese intelligence agencies. So China already has, they're not supposed to have full control over Hong Kong, but they've already done so. There's articles that have come out from the defected Chinese spy in the last week, and then also the 60 Minutes Australia interview. That was unbelievable. So no, Hong Kong will not declare independence, because China, what happens then when the vote, there was a vote also, there was a record amount, China Uncensored covered this yesterday, there was a record amount of voters that turned out for the Hong Kong elections, and they did not do what Beijing wants. And Beijing is not going to listen to the people in Hong Kong. Beijing is going to ignore them and say they need more conditioning. They're going to crack down more. James says, all this trade garbage is pure theater, a great diversion from the impending financial catastrophe. Partially true. There was optimism for a trade deal earlier this year, but there had to be certain conditions that were met. We got close in May. Kyle Bass and Bob Lighthizer have revealed some of those details. It literally, a deal was about to be signed, and then at the last minute, China changed their minds. Again, what's normal with the Chinese? They tried to cheat. The Chinese government, they tried to cheat. They have a long history of this. China's still not in compliance with a lot of the WTO rules for them to get into WTO, the World Trade Organization, and here we are almost 20 years later. And they also lied to the IMF to get the yuan into the SDR. They closed their capital account down, basically. The Hong Kong banks are in bad shape. Kyle Bass talked about this in the last couple weeks. Yeah, so this is just going to be a short show. If you want to read the rest of the article from the AP here, from Yunan Wang, from today, this is going to make Beijing very pissed. Now, the Chinese do respect strength and leverage, but I don't think this is going to help trade negotiations. China's best bet, in my opinion, still is to hope and pray for their sake that Trump does not win in 2020. And they may be supporting the other candidates, the Democrat candidates. That's probably what they're already doing. There's 2 great Kyle Bass interviews that have come out in the last 10 days or so, give or take. Hidden Forces podcast, Dmitry Kofinas. Absolutely great job, Dmitry Kofinas. Don't know if he listens to this podcast. Absolutely great job. And then also the 1-month-old investors conference call that Hedgeye Keith McCullough did with Kyle Bass that was released, where they go into more details about the Hong Kong banking system, why the Hong Kong dollar peg will break, etc. And also, I'll put a link at the end of this short little show to the 60 Minutes Australia interview that they just released a couple days ago with the first Chinese spy who has successfully defected. Well, I don't know if I'd call it a success yet. I mean, he is still alive, but who knows how much longer. I feel bad for the guy's wife and kid, because they didn't ask for this. And the guy's family in mainland China. They didn't ask for that. They didn't even know he was a spy, apparently. Yeah, Carlos, if Australia is not going to give this defected Chinese spy, supposed defected Chinese spy, political asylum, the U.S. needs to do it. Because if he's going to give details, the U.S. needs to protect its borders and its sovereignty with all the crazy things that this guy is alleging. Okay, well, that's it for right now. I'm going to put links to those videos at the end of this short little show. And if you want to read up on this, but President Trump is not taking the full Thanksgiving holiday off. He did sign 2 bills today that Congress signed last week, trying to help the protesters in Hong Kong. And Beijing will be very, very pissed. This is not going to... Maybe Trump can spin this into some type of leverage, maybe, but I'm not optimistic about it. But Trump's still going to be Trump and his minions, the Trumpets, the Larry Kudlows and the Mick Mulvaney's and maybe Steve Mnuchin. They're still going to be spinning this on CNBC and Bloomberg bubble vision that somehow the stock market's going to keep going up. Main reason the stock market's going up, not China trade deal, although Trump is fooling the high-frequency trading algorithms. When I speak to human beings, financial professionals, about the trade deal stuff, almost no one is fooled. Even mainstream financial professionals, almost no one is fooled. It's only the tweets for the high-frequency trading algorithms that scan the headlines from tweets from Trump and the articles. The headlines and articles. But the odds of a trade deal getting done, even phase 1, which was supposed to happen in May, the odds of a trade deal getting done now, are very, very low. This might be the last nail in the coffin. And then China's best strategy, in my opinion, then would be to hope and pray that Trump does not win in 2020. Because things are getting really, really bad on the China side. So there's been like a lot of libertarians from like Foundation for Economic Education and Mises Institute saying how bad the tariffs are hurting Americans. The reality is the opposite. From what I'm hearing from my sources in mainland China, that things were already getting bad with the Chinese economy 2015, 2016, and then Trump won and then started putting in the tariffs, in 2017 and 18, and that's hurting China even more. That has exacerbated problems in the Chinese economy with their credit bubble, with the pork prices, the stagflation that China has. The Chinese government has the currency exchange rate, the Chinese yuan to the dollar, under control for now. They've gotten it back down around 7 again. So the currency is not going crazy for now. But the tariffs have hurt Chinese companies way more, Chinese people and Chinese companies way more, because they were very marginal. A lot of Chinese factories were not profitable prior to the tariffs that Trump put on Chinese goods. So the tariffs have only made things worse. And you can find this out from reading Denny McMahon's book, China's Great Wall of Debt, where he talks about how many Chinese factories, there's also articles about this from the Wall Street Journal earlier this year, about how many Chinese business owners who are factory owners and other businesses, they stopped making profits at a lot of their normal business ventures, and they got into construction and real estate. The mainstream media here in the US is reporting on some of the Chinese problems. You see some articles. The New York Times occasionally has some articles. Reuters has been doing most of the articles fairly well. But yes, a lot of them are actually champagne socialists, and they were the ones who were applauding Xi at Davos a couple years ago. He got a standing ovation and a round of applause. So the Davos crowd, some of these journalists love what China's doing to their own people. Control the economy, silencing dissent and free speech. There's a lot of mainstream journalists in Europe and the US who are in favor of that. They don't want someone having an argument on the other side. Okay, well, that's it for today. I was going to keep this show very, very short because it is Thanksgiving and it is a holiday here. I want to go relax, hang out with my family. Hopefully they won't annoy me too much. And maybe lift some weights later because I haven't had any alcohol. So be productive still on Thanksgiving. Okay, thank you very much. So grateful. So grateful. Today's a day to be grateful for things. So grateful to my now 200 Patreon account contributors, making my life a lot simpler, a lot easier. I could focus on research, content, booking interviews. I may have a really big interview soon. Heard back from the PR person. Might have a very, very big interview. You're going to like it if I get this booked. Can't say the name yet. You'd be impressed. So I am still working on quality content. Now that more money's coming in and my bills are getting paid a lot easier, I can focus now. I don't have to do a stream every single day. I can send out a bunch of emails and try to get those big name interview guests. So I can balance things out with a little bit more interviews with quality guests. Or maybe I move some of this stuff behind the paywall on Patreon. There is some really quality stuff behind the paywall on Patreon. 2 good articles and also a 18-minute podcast there about a potential big rumor, might be the largest gold streaming deal that has been done in history. Might be massive. Rumors going around. We'll see if that gets done. So again, thank you. So grateful to my Patreon account contributors, my monthly PayPal contributors, and people who tip me once in a while.